18th Congress. At napakinggan po ng bawat mambabatas ang naging atas ng ating pong Pangulong Duterte sa nalalabi pong 11 o 12 buwan na kanyang panunungkulan na marami po siyang hinihiling sa ating pong Kongreso na ipasa ng mga batas na maaaring makapagbibigay ng kaginhawaan para sa ating kababayan. Ika nga ng Pangulong Duterte, dreams and ambitions for a better life is really reachable. Depende ho yan sa gobyerno, sa kasulukuyang gobyerno natin. Ito ang kanyang nagawa. At magagawa pa sa nalalabing isang taon. Ang ating pong Pangulong Duterte ay nalapit na ho sa ilang po mga mambabatas. Nagpasalamat at nagbibigay pugay sa 5 taon po niyang panunungkulan at may nalalabi pa.
Our speech, 2 hours and 45 minutes. This is Rodrigo Duterte's 6th final record-breaking, longer than longest State of the Nation address. Like we said, 2 hours and 45 minutes. So where do we begin to tell this recap? And of course, it's been such a struggle because he really went off script several times, admitting it himself many times over. So we're going to try and do this as quickly as we can and try to make sense of what he said in 2 hours and 45 minutes. So, you know, we all need, and I was thinking that maybe we should just start very quickly, you know, with the light moments, because Lord knows we all need a bit of a break from that 2 hour and 45 minute speech. And there was that first light moment where he talked about how he was having difficulty with a teleprompter. For us broadcast journalists, a teleprompter is one of the instruments that we use to make our jobs easier because we cannot memorize all the scripts, no? And sometimes we need to read some scripts. They're meant to be a guide for us, and I wish we could show what a teleprompter looks like. Maybe in a while we can show that and you know, just show a bit of a breakaway video so you know what I'm talking about. Teleprompter is a machine that's right in front of the camera from which we read, and
nakatutok sa West Philippine Sea ang tulungan ng dalawang bansa dahil
5 years and 1 month that he's been president. Now the other thing was another light moment was when he was talking about Sorsogon, a province in the Bicol region, because at that moment he was talking about how infrastructure development had gone.
That is why I cajole.
maganda na sana.
Yes, nasa Zoom, and it reminded us all that the Vice President was asked not to go to the SONA, to the Batasan, and to just attend the SONA via Zoom. All right. Also, you know, in a SONA, in a pre-pandemic SONA, you would always have what we call cutaway shots. A cutaway shot is you have the main speaker, one camera talking, and then the camera shows other people. So you cut away to people sitting in the gallery. And of course, this didn't happen too often because there were very many people there at the Batasan, precisely because of COVID restrictions. So quite a number of them were on Zoom. And there were Zoom cutaways of former presidents Era, Joseph Estrada, Gloria Arroyo, and VP Lani Robredo herself and other officials. Because, of course, dahil na, like we said, sa COVID restrictions, hindi naman talaga pwedeng ma-accommodate lahat ng kailangan maging bisita sa SONA ng Pangulo. Alright, the President also, sometime at the beginning of the speech, expressing gratitude to all the pandemic frontliners, especially the health workers. He did read that portion quite emotionally, if you will. He also, and we're going to go to what he said about COVID much later on, because I remember, we were monitoring what people were saying on social media during the length of the speech, the whole length of the speech, and some people were asking, among them journalists, what has he said about COVID? Now, what's he going to say about COVID? Where's he going to take us? And that was near the end of the speech. But anyway, very quickly, we're going to go through the speech and talk about, for example, syempre ang pinag-usapan dito, like in any SONA, na final SONA, kailangan pag-usapan yung accomplishments ng administration. So he did talk about how he helped equip the armed forces and the Philippine National Police better. He talked about, of course, the AFP modernization, 2 missile-capable warships, the Navy that just came in. He talked about the creation of the NTF-LCAC, the National Task Force, that was working against local armed communist insurgents. Of course, this is a very bitter point for some of the president's critics, because they felt that this was the NTF-LCAC was used to red tag several people and organizations, but the president was insisting that its creation was an accomplishment for his administration, because peace and security, he said, is not just an armed forces or a PNP concern. He talked about how the NTF-LCAC helped reward communities that are able to free themselves of communists. It was at this point in time where he went off script again, talking about like he said, itong komunista, college pa ako, nandyan na, and then he talked about revolutionary taxes that he said that he was insisting that everyone, he says, pays to the NPA and the other New People's Army, that he said is pocketed by the leadership, used to send their children to study abroad and to quote-unquote support Joma Sison, for example, in the Netherlands. The president also, going off script, when he started to talk about drugs and how he reminded us all how at the beginning of his term he was talking about these 9 generals, he said, that were involved in drug pushing. He reminded Senator Bato de la Rosa, who ran for the Senate in 2019 and who was his first chief PNP, that he wanted to go after these people. He did talk a lot about drugs. It was the same words over and over again. Ito yung isa sa mga pet peeves niya, when he talks about how drugs destroy families, how parents abroad, mga OFWs, leave their children behind, and then their children are taken advantage of, he says, by drug lords. And then and of course, he just had to say what he always says. And he said, for those, he says, who destroy my country in young people, quote unquote, I will kill you. Among the other accomplishments, let's go back to the accomplishments where he talked about the passage of the organic law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. He did say that the war against drugs was a success, he said, because it destroys families and degrades the moral fiber. He also said that infrastructure development, among them the MRT, LRT2, Metro Manila Skyway, Kalayaan Bridge, the passenger terminal building of the Clark International Airport, how all of this takes away the misery of the public. He talked about how our Philippine passports from validity from 5 to 10 years. That's an accomplishment, he said. He talked about addressing the 3 million backlog in driver's licenses. He talked about launching the national ID system, how this is going to help streamline government processes. Another accomplishment, he said, are all these issuances of executive orders, administrative orders, memorandum orders, proclamations from the office of the president that he said helped in governance. He also talked about how he used his, used his political capital to fight the water concessionaires, Manila Water, Maynila. Remember that issue about a year and a half ago, where he said these contracts with these water firms were onerous and were very disadvantageous to the government and to the people. Somehow he started to talk about ABS-CBN when he was talking about the water firms, again dredging up the quarrel he had with them, but he said he didn't want to be vindictive. but that he was insisting that ABS-CBN, this media giant that was shuttered last May 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, had cheated the government, he said, by billions in taxes, declaring only 4 hectares when he says it should be 40 hectares. We're not sure if he was referring to the ABS-CBN compound in Quezon City. He also talked about, in terms of accomplishments, tax reforms, he said, which would help improve the economy. He talked about free college education, free universal health care, the malasakit centers, of course, special mention for his longtime aide, Senator Bongo. He even said, Senator, well, not saying his name outright, but saying, if you feel like standing up, please do so, masikat ka pa sa akin. And then, of course, Bongo, if you noticed, he was wearing a barong with the Duterte sign embroidered on the right breast pocket. He did also make several appeals to Congress, appealing to Congress, for example, a unified system of retirement and separation benefits for the armed forces and the PNP. This has been a long-standing problem with the AFP and the PNP. He also asked for a law to give free legal assistance for armed forces and PNP officers who, in the performance of their duty, get into trouble with the law. He also called on local governments to help pave the way para matapos na itong mga flagship projects, usually mga infrastructure. He said this because I remember before he used to talk about how some local governments, because of their many processes, systems, things that need to be submitted, can get in the way of an infrastructure project and getting it finished. Now there was a portion of the speech where he talked about, and again, very in admin fashion, where he talked about foreign relations. Noong una, meron pa siyang, kumbaga, papiaw sa West Philippine Sea issue, and he talks about how, quote-unquote, the majesty of the law must prevail. And then he goes on to talk about, he brings up the garbage from Canada, for example, the bells of Balaniga. We all remember that. He talked about that in his 2019 SONA. The bells of Balaniga, the massacre at the turn of the century in Samar, the province of Samar, the howling wilderness. He said he was insisting that the Americans, he said, went to see him, invited him to the US, and he said, no, I don't like how you treat my country, return the bells. And then he said that these American officials said, isauli namin, pupunta ka. But the president was saying that, no, I'm never going to go to the US. And people are making up stories, he said, about why he doesn't want to go to the US. He also talked about, and then after he talked about the garbage from Canada, the bells of Balamiga, and by the way, when he was talking about these foreign relations issues, make cutaway shot to the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, the Archbishop Charles John Brown. He did go back to the arbitral ruling on the South China Sea. He said that we asserted that arbitral ruling, but then again he went off script and talked about how he said, quote, brilliant Filipinos, or idiots, he said, would insist on him declaring war against China, and that China had helped him, and he said, I never received money from China to buy votes, and it was only the Filipino-Chinese community that went for me. But he was insisting, minsan daw, sabi niya, hindi ako tumanggap ng Christmas gift or any gift, or hindi ako tinulungan ng China, he said. Alright, it was in the latter part. Earlier I said, there was that an expression of gratitude for pandemic frontliners, especially healthcare workers. It was in the latter part of the speech, around 6:08 in the evening, at the 1 hour and 55-minute mark, where he did talk about COVID. He was, it was a litany of what he says were the accomplishments of his administration, the Bayanihan 1 and 2 passage, the testing, quarantine facilities, improvement of hospitals, increasing of bed capacity, vaccine delivery. He did also praise the city of San Juan with Mayor Francis Zamora because he said they vaccinated 70% of their population. But he